This is the German Kieninger clock that I picked up at Hiab recently. I've taken the movement out of the case. It's sitting here on my desk at the moment. And before we take the chains out, we'll have a look and see what we can see in relation to the movement. The first thing we see, which is a bit obvious, is that there's no suspension spring. So that's not going to help the movement incredibly. I've ordered another one from Cousins in the UK, so that should be here in a couple of weeks' time. In the meantime, we'll take the movement to pieces, clean it, get it oiled up, see what's happening, and generally get it back in good shape again by the time that the suspension spring arrives. Now I'll adjust the camera. Now the first thing we have to do, the clock face comes off later on. I've taken the hands off it, but the first thing we have to do is remove this board here. This is a board that holds the movement into the case. I'll take the screws out. There's one of them. I'll take the other one out. Seems to be loosening up a bit, which is good. Take the screws out. There's the other one. Now, very carefully pull the board out, because we've still got the chains on it. But I think we can probably just slide that down. The hole's big enough for the chains to slide through. So I'll pull the chains up, and that'll remove the board from the clock. Running through again, as you do. Alright, that's got that piece removed. Now, we'll take that off later on. I'll spin the movement up, and we can have a look and see how we get rid of the clock face. Turn the movement round. As you can see here, there's two little levers there that pinch a brass piece into those two posts, one on each side. Being careful of the face while we're turning it round. There's one there and one on the other side. Alright, I'll lie the movement down on our holding block for the moment. We'll undo those two brass levers there. It's got those two. We'll now turn the movement round. Get the chains out of the road. We'll turn the movement round. Now we'll undo this one, and we'll undo that one. So that now in theory should allow us to lift the movement up from the face of the clock. And it does. Alright, I'll remove the face, put it aside, put the movement standing flat like so. So there's our movement. Being very careful of the pendulum rod here, because that is going to get bent if I'm not careful. Right, I'll put the movement back on block here and lift it back very carefully, and I'll turn it round. And the first thing I'll do is I'll remove the crutch and the pallets on the inside. And there the pallets are there, you can see them there and down there. Alright, that's the first thing we'll do. So I'll get a screwdriver. Actually, I'll get a larger bladed screwdriver because they're reasonable size, and loosen those nuts. That's one of them. Put it into a dish. Now undo the other nut coming out now. Undo the other screw, I mean. Now we can take the back cock off. That's the back cock, that piece there. Now we'll very carefully lift the pallets up and out. Now we can have a closer look at the pallets. I'll tip them up so I can look at the faces. I'm interested in the condition of the face. They don't look too bad actually, but there's a little mark on the leading edge there. So we'll stone those before we put them back in again. Right, I'll put that aside. What I have to do now is work out how big a block to make to stand this movement on, because it's quite large, it's quite heavy, and I don't have anything that'll come remotely near supporting that weight while we take it apart and work on it. I've modified one of my test stands to hold the movement. Over here you can see I've connected a beat amplifier. I put the new suspension spring in that arrived a few days ago. I've got an unfinished tapered pin in it here. it's the right size. We'll cut it to shape later on, but it's sufficient for the moment to get the movement working. You remember early on when I was winding the minute hand round, you could hear a distinct clunk, clunk, clunk in the movement every time the Westminster Chimes struck, and then these ones here striking the hour. So before I take a movement apart, I always like to look and see what problems we can find that may give us headaches later on. I've started the pendulum swinging, and you can hear there's 3 distinct tick-tock plus a clunk in it. So we're going to get that sorted out now. This movement has a very interesting way of setting the beat. I'll adjust the camera, bring it in a bit closer. Instead of bending the crutch like you normally do on a pendulum clock, this clock has got this really interesting setup down here on the pendulum leader. You can see there's a knurl nut there, and the pendulum leader has a rod here that connects to the crutch there, and by adjusting that nut left and right, you move the bottom of the pendulum leader relative to the crutch. And as you can hear, it's not in beat. It's definitely not in beat, it's stopped. All right, I'll start the pendulum again. And you can hear how out of beat it is. So the first thing we notice is that the pendulum is jumping at the end. You can see it bouncing here. That's because the crutch is hitting this pin here. So what we need to do is adjust this screw down here. So I'll stop the pendulum for a moment and I'll count the number of, that's 3 quarter turns. Try it again. That's obviously getting quite worse. Right, I'll stop the pendulum and we'll go back our 3 quarter turns. There we are. Now we'll go 3 quarter turns the other direction and start the pendulum again. Nope, still touching. Alright. Stop the pendulum. Rather tight. I actually put some oil on that before, but it's not making a lot of difference. Alright, we'll go back to 3. We'll put another 3 on it. This rod here that connects to the crutch has moved significantly to the left hand side, so we'll start the pendulum again. Wait till it falls into its correct beat. It's getting closer, but the crutch is still touching that post there. Right, put it in a tiny bit and we'll start again. Still touching. We just keep making small adjustments. That's getting better, but it's not there yet. It's getting quite close. Tiny bit more. Almost. A little bit more. Just a matter of very slowly making minor adjustments. That is sounding not too bad actually. We'll let the pendulum run and I'll turn the minute hand. We can check the movement on the chime side. That was the half hour. We'll come up to the 3/4 hour. Then bring it up to the full hour. Into warning. Now it'll strike. Three o'clock. And the movement is still in beat. You can hear that.